Everyone, Joe Waxman here. And if you're watching this, it means that I've decided to post it. Still not sure yet. Just a little update. I was banned from posting on YouTube for about 2 weeks because I got another strike. They keep removing videos of mine. I think I've had like 4 videos removed. And this time they removed like 3 videos and only gave me 1 strike for it, which I don't know how they do that, but they do that. I mean, whatever. But yeah, I have 2 strikes, and if I get another strike, then that means I'll have my channel deleted, which sucks. So, and I hate censoring myself, but I have a backup channel on Rumble, and I was able to download all my videos on there. And actually what happened is that I connected Rumble and YouTube. You can connect the 2 channels together, and then one of the videos that I had downloaded on Rumble, which was already banned and removed from YouTube, uploaded onto YouTube. So they banned it again, and that started the strike. And then they removed 2 more videos. So very annoying. So I disconnected my Rumble and YouTube channels. In any case, let's see. So yeah, I had a 2-week strike, and which really sucks. It was on the top of another strike that I had gotten before, and banned for at least a week from posting. Very unfortunate for me, but oh well. It is what it is, and I hate censoring myself. So, and I thought I was, but obviously not good enough. It's actually pretty depressing if you ask me. Having to hide what I say and not be able to say what I really think. But I'm going to do my best. I don't like the format of Rumble as much, or any of the other video channels. I think YouTube did a really great job with their format despite their censorship. But the subject I wanted to talk about today is not astrology. It is about what Kanye West recently brought up about the whole Jewish question of Jews in media and Hollywood and all that. And myself, my background being Jewish, I'm not religious, but my family is a Jewish family. Both my parents come from Jewish families, Jewish background. I feel like, I do have a lot of opinions and thoughts about this, and I think it's worthwhile to share it just to add more light to the situation. I think things are better when they're understood. When we shine the light of consciousness on things, they can evolve and grow. And when we ignore them and keep things in the shadow, things tend to stagnate and devolve, or not evolve, not grow. So I think it's better to talk about it, even though it's uncomfortable and it's a sensitive topic. And I don't really, I like expressing myself, but at the same time, it can be a hurtful topic to me, or just when we're talking about differences in different people. It is a very sensitive topic, and I don't have this talk all planned out, so I'm just kind of, I have some basic points I want to touch on, and I'm just winging it. So a little bit about my background, just so you understand where I'm coming from. Both parents are Jewish. My father comes from a Ukrainian Jewish family, but they were here in America before World War II. So basically, his side of the family is more insulated or protected from the most recent atrocities around being Jewish. My mother's side of the family is Hungarian Jewish, and they were in Hungary during World War II when the Nazis came. And just even a little further background about that, my grandmother is fully Jewish. My grandfather was not Jewish, and that's something I don't talk about much, not because it really doesn't matter much. But he was born an orphan. His mother died when he was young. His father, he never knew his father. He was raised by, like an uncle, maybe. But he was not raised Jewish because his mother wasn't Jewish. We don't know about his father. And there's a slight chance that he could have been Jewish, but basically we think he's not Jewish. Not that it matters, really. But it matters because people think it matters, and it matters because everyone has different identities and keeps certain, bloodlines. I don't come from a pure bloodline. In any case, grandfather Christian, grandmother Jewish, they married, which was kind of a little bit taboo at the time, but for whatever reason, they did. And let's see, most of my grandmother's family were killed by the Nazis. Interestingly enough, a lot of them chose to hide in the country, and they were found. My grandfather somehow was crafty enough to get my grandmother fake papers, saying that she was not Jewish, Christian, and she had blonde hair. A lot of Jews have blonde hair. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, but there was a warrant out for his death because he was a traitor to his country. He opposed they tried to recruit him into the Communist Party, and so he had to hide. And my grandmother had the fake papers, but he hid in the city, and they couldn't find him. So if you have to hide, a city's a better place to hide than in the country. Just FYI. So anyway, they had fake papers, but they did a lot of harrowing. They had a lot of harrowing experiences, like, dressing up as old women to cross a bridge full of soldiers, stuff like that. In any case, not important. My mother was born in a British prison camp in Cyprus. So, they say epigenetically that trauma passes down 3 generations. So I have that epigenetic encoding that kind of makes me a bit more alert, like sort of like a rabbit or deer, like a herbivorous animal who's has to be on high alert so that they don't get eaten by the predators, right? I think a lot of Jewish people, especially the ones who've had family go through that experience, or people in general who've gone through trauma, will have this kind of high alert kind of tendency towards nervousness and anxiety and high alert type people. Highly sensitive persons is another way of looking at it. In any case, that's just a little bit about my background. So I'm not speaking as an outsider, I'm speaking as somebody who's directly, through family having experience in this kind of thing. Now the subject is that the question of the subject is the whole Jewish question. Well, it's a fact that Jews are very there's a small percentage of Jews on the earth, and that there's a highly overrepresented in areas like media and Hollywood, in a lot of areas. And why is that? And I'm not here to pose any definite answers, but more to just shine some light on the situation and pose some questions, and because I don't really know why it is, but I can tell you that most Jews are not involved at that high level in anything. I mean, most Jews are just normal people, middle class, right? And I happen to be below middle class. I have like $200 in my bank account, and I'm really I've always struggled financially. My grandparents made money, but then you can, and I was raised with some money, but I mean, then again, that defies the stereotype, because it was mostly my grandfather who made the money, and he's not Jewish as far as we know, and he did it with by making handbags. And he had a handbag factory. So, and he did that just from scratch. That wasn't given to him. He came to this country poor, he and my grandmother. Um, so in any case, um, everyone's an individual, and that's the problem with lumping people into groups when saying it's the Jews, it's the Jews. It's not the Jews. It's, yeah, I understand why some people would say that, but what the problem is that you're talking about a very, very, very tiny percentage of Jews who are in power, and you're also cherry picking because there's a whole lot of non-Jewish people who are in positions of power, both in media and Hollywood. I mean, okay, so like you look at the main CEOs and founders of media, and they are majority Jewish, but not all of them are Jewish. The CEO of Google is not Jewish. Rupert Murdoch is not Jewish. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue that the majority is not Jewish. The majority of CEOs and founders of media are Jewish. But so the question is, and probably in Hollywood as well, and in a lot of areas, and the question is, why is that? I mean, one you could say one answer to that is that, well, there's a conspiracy, right? The Jewish conspiracy. Jews are just putting other Jews in positions of power. But that only holds weight if the Jews are capable of maintaining that power, because obviously these companies have to make money and they have to be successful, right? And you can't put somebody in power who's not going to do a good job. So even if that's true, nobody ever gave me any power, and nobody ever gave most Jews any power. But then it's also like, well, what about the non-Jews who have power? Are they also putting Jews in power? I mean, it kind of doesn't fully make sense. I can see somewhat, but also, like, if that's the case, then other people who are in power, which we have a lot of people in power who are not Jews, regular white Christians, Black people, Asians, they should all follow suit. If that's a model that is successful, they should all just follow suit. And then you have an equal representation, right? Black people in power should have put other Black people in power. Asians in power should also put other, because then it's all equal, right? However, I don't really think that's the case. I think that's somewhat the case, but I think there's anomalies that don't add up. For instance, like, you have to be able to maintain that power. You have, like, CEOs, you can't just be anyone doesn't just become a CEO and just stays there. Like, you can make somebody a CEO, but unless they're good at their job, the other people, the board, will remove that person from CEO if they're not doing a good job. It's basic, what's the word? Just natural order of things, natural order of business, right? And we know that there's a lot of non-Jewish representatives in every arena, because there's just not enough Jews. There has to be, right? If we look at politics, I don't think there's ever been a Jewish president. If Jews are all powerful, why has there never been a Jewish president? Well, you could say, well, because if a Jew runs for office, people naturally know that Jews have too much power and they don't vote for Jews. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's it. But you could also look at it and say that, well, every single president belongs to a prominent bloodline. So what's that about? And these are non-Jewish bloodlines. So, I mean, it is a bit cherry picking when people blame Jews, because there's a lot of powerful families in the world that are not Jewish, right? Think about the royalties, British royalty, all the royalties of other countries. I don't think there's any Jewish royalty. I mean, you could say, like, well, the Rothschilds, they're the Jewish royalty. Okay, the Rothschild, maybe, I don't care, whatever, fine. But there's plenty of non-Jewish royalties, and I don't actually know that the Rothschilds are the richest family. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Maybe it's like British royalty, or maybe it's like the Saudi or Arabian royalty, or the other Middle Eastern royalty, or maybe some Asian royalty. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows. It's not me. But and who's the most powerful? Just because you have the most money doesn't mean you have the most power. I mean, maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't, right? I don't know. I don't have answers. Like, I'm not coming at this with tons of answers. I'm just sharing my perspective. as a person who has a Jewish background. Then the other equation could be the other answer, and this is something that Jordan Peterson proposed, and this is kind of touchy. I mean, a lot of people would not like to believe this or acknowledge this, but according to Jordan Peterson, and I'm not saying that, not Jordan Peterson, I'm not saying this is so, but this is what he says, that the reason Jews are overrepresented in media and Hollywood and other, like also like banking and other things, is because they have higher IQ, right? According to him, 2 standard deviations higher than average. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that is another possibility, that through genetics, through Jews keeping Jewish bloodlines, they've developed different genetics, because that does happen when people stick to certain bloodlines. Then their genetic traits, this will be across the board, everyone will have this. Certain groups will have different genetics. That's an obvious factor. Skin color is a genetic factor. Athleticism is a genetic factor, right? Intellect is a genetic factor. These are all genetics, right? And of course, there's huge variations among the gene pool, but still you have like genetic differences with different groups, right? And then it gets very touchy, like why are certain groups overrepresented in different areas? And I'm not going to touch on all the different areas, but you can look, you can see like, okay, what is the percentage of this group, and what is the percentage of this group in this area? Well, it's not just Jews. Different groups are overrepresented in different areas. And you can do your own homework about that and see which groups are more represented in which areas. Sports, music, politics, population. You're going to have different groups that it's not equal. We don't have this thing called equality that we imagine. It's always different. And sometimes there are collusions, conspiracies to do certain things to certain groups. I'm not saying they're not. Certain groups are repressed, socially, politically, and different times more than less, and they do that through different means. So there's that as well. Bottom line, I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though Jews are overrepresented in positions of power across the board, I'm not going to deny that. When you say it's the Jews, first of all, you're doing a disservice to humanity by condemning all the millions and millions, the vast majority, 99.999% of all Jews who are not in positions of power, like myself. I got nothing to do with it. So when you say it's the Jews, you're basically saying I'm guilty of things that I have nothing to do with, as well as the vast majority of all Jewish people, right? So it's like the same thing, like other people have said, pointed out, like if you blame all Italians for the mafia, for what the mafia does, like that's ridiculous, right? Or blaming all Black people for the crime that certain Black people do, right? Or blaming all Mexicans or Latinos for what the gang members do. It's ridiculous, right? They say Hitler was part Jew, but he was mostly not Jew, right? So do all white Christians bear the guilt of what Hitler did? I don't think so. That's ridiculous, right? Right. What about Mao Zedong? He killed millions of China, like millions and millions and millions, right? We can blame all Chinese people because he looks the same as them and he's Chinese. Stupid. Like these things are stupid. We have to make people. My point is that people are individuals and people are responsible for their own, for what they do. People are responsible for themselves. And you can't blame groups for what a small, very tiny, teeny percentage of those people in those groups do. And maybe there are some, collusional, like maybe some Jews in power are like want other Jews to also have that power, maybe, but unless, like it goes back to, unless they can hold that power, unless they're good at their job, unless they're making all the non-Jews happy, they're not going to stay in power, right? It's that simple. Just like, I mean, like black people in basketball and music, unless they're good at their, like, that's not a conspiracy. You can't just be like, well, black people own basketball and they're putting all the other black people in basketball. Well, maybe they can try, but unless they're good, they're not going to stay there. Same with music. Unless they're good, it's not going to stay there. Or whatever. Anything anyone does, it's, unless they're good at their job, they're not going to, unless you're like, steal a presidency like Joe Biden. I mean, that's another story, but don't want to get myself in trouble here. But generally speaking, that's the way it goes. Whatever you want to believe about, whether these people in power do have, hierarchy. I don't know. I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying that is one answer to this equation. Obviously, they can do their job pretty well. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. Those that have that job, whatever job they have, they're doing a decent enough job. I'm not saying they're good people, but they're able to, hold their positions of power for as long as they do. So, I don't know. In any case, like I said, let's go back to the main point. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There are millions and millions and millions of Jews who are not guilty. That's like with every single group who has like a section that might be, criminal or distasteful or whatever, holding too much power. It only represents a tiny, tiny piece of that group. And so you cannot, otherwise we're getting to very ugly territory, like the Nazis and Hitler and Ku Klux Klan and any sort of racism. It's all collectivism. It's all blaming the entire group for what a small percentage is guilty of, right? Even if they are guilty, sometimes completely fabricated, right? And just one more side note about that. Jews largely got into banking in Europe because of discrimination, because Christians, if you have a world where there's only Christians and Jews, which was for the most part, there might have been some subgroups, here and there, like the gypsies and whatnot. But the Christians were, as part of their early religious beliefs, they were prohibited from banking, from loaning money, because usury was against the Christian belief at that time. Eventually it changed, but Jews were prohibited from doing all sorts of other trades. So Jews were kind of pushed into banking. I'm not making excuses for any sort of, corrupt behavior that came after that, with the Rothschilds or other Jewish banking families, but they were pushed into it. So there's that. There's always two sides to the story, right? And, I know it's easy to blame, it's easy to point fingers, it's easy to say Jews are bad, kill the Jews, right? But if we want to be intelligent, if we want to be honest, if we want to have integrity and really work to save humanity, we have to be really empathetic and try and understand the whole story behind things and not just blame and point fingers and just, because it's easy, just point to a group that's not your identity and just say it's their fault, but that's ignorant. That's always ignorant. Every single time that's going to be ignorant, no matter what group that is, it's going to be ignorant. It's their fault, right? It's not. It's all of us, and we have to come to understanding. And understanding is far better than non-understanding. And are there evil, Jews who are satanic? Yeah. There are satanic Christians, and there are satanic Muslims, and there are satanic atheists, and there's satanic all kinds of people, right? And being satanic just means you worship the ego over the soul. The soul being the representative of God, ego being representative of Satan. And Satan is not a real being. Satan is a construct of the mind that comes out of worshiping the ego, right? Because these egotistical Satanists, they literally worship the ego. I mean, they say there's no God. We have all the power in our mind. We're the creators. We're like gods. That's Satanism. Whether they call it Satanism or not, whether they believe that's Satanism or not, that's the essence of Satanism, is worship over the ego. They think they're more powerful than God. The truth is that we are God. We are not a God. We are God because God is all. And if you understand that, then you know, there's no power in Satan or the ego, because it's just a construct. It's a fabrication. It's not real. Once you see that, it has no power. It's just understanding that. So in any case, these satanic people, they're not very intelligent. They're clever. They can be extremely clever, but they're not very intelligent, because they don't understand that what they're worshiping is a false idol. It's a construct. It's made up. It's not real. They're worshiping something that doesn't actually, that it cannot last. It cannot go on, because it's not life giving. It's life taking. It eats itself. It's cannibalistic. It's self-consuming. It doesn't sustain itself, right? Versus the true understanding is the growth of the soul, and that we are God, and that all is God, and that anything else than that is false, right? So if you say, well, it's God versus the devil, well, that's a false concept. It's not God versus the devil, right? That's completely false. That's actually believing in the devil, and that's giving the devil Satanism power, because it's a false ideology. The true ideology is all is God, and that if you think Satan exists as a real thing, it's false. It's not. It doesn't. It's a construct. It's the nature of the mind to create imaginary things and believe in them. That's Maya. Right? Satanism is being trapped in Maya. That's what the Buddhists taught. Right? So anyway, that's just my take on this sensitive topic that can be very hurtful. I do tend to get my feelings hurt whenever anyone's like, it's the Jews, because that means it's me, and I didn't do anything. Like, I'm not guilty. I'm not taking responsibility for the Rothschilds. I'm not, and neither are any of the 15 other million Jews out there who are also not in any position of power, right? And there's some Jew, but it's like 0.0001% or something, even less than that, right? But same with non-Jews, like none of these Christians can take responsibility for the crimes of the pedophile priests or the satanic Catholic Church, the satanic Mormon Church. These are satanic. The satanic Jesuits. These are all satanic. I'm not saying all of Christianity is satanic. It's not, but not all. There's a satanic element in Judaism, but not all of Judaism is satanic. There's real Jews who believe in one God and not false idols. They don't worship false idols. The same with Christians. They believe in one God, right? So anyway, same with Muslims, same with all the groups, right? I'm not trying to create another division here, anything like that. So in any case, guys, let's use our understanding. Let's search for answers rather than point fingers and blame. And there's a Chinese saying which I really like. It's be the guest, not the host, and that means in life, don't come at life with answers saying, I know the way it is, and this is the way it is, and blah, 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 blah. Come at life with questions, and because allow life to teach you. And I hold that view with astrology. I hold that view with all of life. Allow life to teach you. Don't come at life thinking you know all the answers. Come at life wondering, questioning, trying to figure it out. Try to understand, right? Be curious, be open, and understand, know that you don't know everything. That's really important, that we don't know. There's so much we don't know, and that we can't come at life pointing fingers and with answers and blame and all that. That's not the way we're going to evolve as a humanity, as a human species, right? Be more open and curious. All right. That's it for now, guys. And I'll do some more astrology videos very shortly soon. All right, so thanks. Bye.